Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Broke Girl Society podcast. I'm your host, Christina, and today we're going to talk about something just a little bit differently. We're going to talk about kind of the beginning journey of starting recovery. And today I have April with us. Hi, April.
Yeah, so I'm ready for it. I'm a little nervous because I'm still fresh at it and struggling still. So
Yeah.
hopefully this helps others.
Well, and I think as we talk about it too, it kind of helps us process those things that are in our head, just getting them out, whether it's on paper or whether you're talking to somebody who understands. It kind of helps you, or it helped me kind of process those emotions, because they can be really overwhelming. And sometimes they can just really lock us up and keep us in place because we don't know how to process them or even really what we're feeling.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because before I came on, I took some notes because I didn't want to, be lost and not know what to say, and it was kind of so like the notes I started with, the title is Reasons to Change. And I jotted down, like, I got a whole page of a legal pad that is full of just things, and I thought it was going to be more helpful for the conversation we're having, but as I was writing them, it was releasing a lot. you
Mm-hmm.
know I'm literally just in the first few days of trying, giving it
Mm-hmm.
another try. And I'm ready for it. I want it. I want it really bad. And I acknowledge uh, that it's got a really firm hold on me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm, I don't know where to start. The last couple of weeks, I've been kind of in a downward spiral.
Okay.
I've spent tons of money, lied a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and um, even like walking into these, because here where I'm at, it's everywhere, every corner, so accessible. And they're always throwing money at you. Well, free money, not really,
Yep.
but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, even walking into these places the last few times, I'm wired and sick, like almost like I'm not in control of myself going into these places. I don't want to be there. I don't like the way I feel. I just don't like me. And I couldn't control it, And I say can't because I'm still so fresh. I mean, it's only been a few days since I've made the conscious decision.
Okay. So for me, whenever I would go in and you're talking about you don't even want to be there. You don't even like yourself when you're there and you're questioning yourself. Why am I here? Like, why can't I make the choice not to walk in? And I think a lot of people who don't understand this addiction are like, just don't go. Like
Mhm.
it's just not that simple. And it's almost like something possesses us. And it's just like anybody that's struggling with any kind of addiction, it just grabs hold of you, and it's almost like it's on autopilot or something, or like you don't have control of the steering wheel, and
Yes.
so I think it's really important to kind of talk about this really early kind of where you might still be gambling, but you know that you've got to make a change. You know that you're just destroying, you know, your just yourself in general, right? Your happiness and those kinds of things.
Yeah. I mean, like number one on my list was, I just don't recognize myself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I've turned into something that I never in a million years would have thought that I could be. I just lie and I'm greedy. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really hard to hear. I mean, nobody has told me that. I just know it. It's
Right.
just a hard pill to swallow. And it's I'm so like in this cycle that it's the fear of getting out of it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
afraid, because
Yes.
it's almost like this has become my friend, like a
Yes.
good friend
It's
and
your
my
safe
only friend at
place.
this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your safe place.
And
It's where you go. It's how you deal with things. And when you don't have it, you have to actually deal with things. And
yes.
that's fucking scary. I don't care who you are. That's scary. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, how many years, let's go with this. How many years were you in this addiction?
Really actively, at least 5 years, but it's become a real problem. The last couple years have become a real problem. Like
And
it's, just a quick example, my daughter 2 years ago, her husband's in the military and she came home from California to give birth. And so we went to the hospital. We were there. She's being induced. She starts dilating. And I just was like, you know what? I'll be back. I'll be back. I'm just gonna, I lied and said I was gonna go home for something really quick. No, instead I stopped and I gambled while she's in active labor. Like that's just a really like horrible memory for me to have. And it hurts when I think about it, but it's the truth.
yeah.
It's the truth. And, she's calling me and I'm on this machine and she's like, Mom, I'm at a 7. You got to come back, So, I should have been there. I should have been there the whole time. And I wasn't, but I'm sorry. That was just a
No,
random
this is
thing
this
that
is
came
what
to
we're
mind.
talking about. We're talking about these memories because I don't have children, but there are memories and things, like I skipped a family reunion. My grandfather's 90 will be 92 next month. And how many more family reunions do I have? How many more
Right.
chances do I have to hang out with him? And he was a huge part of raising me, and he's a wonderful man. But it's like I couldn't commit to those kinds of things because I would rather be in the casino. And I know that there's a lot of women out there who struggle with the mom guilt of that. So I know that that's a real tough issue. And I think it's just like if we don't have the escape of gambling, we have to remember, we have to think about those things, and we can't run from them. But I think that the key to that is, like when you tell that story, you're owning that story, right? You're
Right.
telling that story, you're getting it out, and you're owning it. You know that you made a different choice. If you could go back, you would have been there. But the thing is we can't go back. So we talk about it, we own it, we process it, and when you're holding that grandbaby, you just enjoy that grandbaby, that
Yes.
kind of stuff. So it's one of those, that's just part of the process of starting recovery. And that's something you'll find in recovery. But like right now, how are your urges?
Um, well, the first days is you're feeling good
Mm-hmm.
because you're like,
Yep.
okay, I just don't want to go back. I'm feeling really good. Yesterday I kept myself super busy. It was a great day. I had no urge. Today it's creeping in a little bit. It's creeping in. I just am trying to again keep busy. It's raining out today, so it's just a little bit harder because like the plans I had are not there anymore. So yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm just trying to push it out. I just don't, this is the hardest thing is when you have the time, you have a little bit of money,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not really doing anything.
You have to learn to be
So,
comfortable being bored. That's what my therapist told me. You have to learn to be comfortable with yourself and with those bored kind of moments, because those are the ones that you're like, well, why not? And
yeah,
so it's just, and by sitting with yourself and being okay with that, you're processing the things that normally if you sat with yourself you didn't want to process, so you got
yeah,
up and you went, or did
right.
got on your phone or whatever it is. Now, how
Yeah,
long
I
have you
mean,
actually been gambling?
yeah, no, 5 years for sure.
5 years
Well,
total.
okay, so yeah, 5 years. Well, no, if you think, I mean, if you're including like, I would go to the casino every once in a while. It wasn't an addiction. It was
Mm-hmm.
just for pleasure. It wasn't anything crazy. I would leave when I lost. I didn't like have to keep taking out money like now, or I could leave with winnings. Now if I go, it's it's all or nothing.
Right.
I'm there and I'm spending and taking more money out, trying to Venmo myself from a credit card, just crazy, uh,
Yeah. Doing
out
whatever
of
you
control.
can. Yeah.
Yeah,
To get the
impulsive.
money. Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, so I grew up with my dad. He would go to the track, the horse track. We would go with them. We'd bet on horses. I loved scratch offs, but I never really thought much about it. And those, to be honest with you, the slot machines are um, the thing that feeds me.
Yep.
It's
Me
the
too.
other stuff I don't really, I just would do it at the time. It wasn't like I actively sought it. It's just, but the slots, yeah, I mean, that the lights and everything, but when you're there and you're in that zombie mode, and I look around and I look at other people and a while, last year, I didn't identify with them. I
Yeah.
would look at them and be like, oh, these people, they're just,
They need to go home.
yeah, they need to go, or they're always here, but I didn't realize I'm always there too, but I've become aware of it.
Hmm.
Um, my oh my God, I'm addicted moment was, just when I had to come clean about the credit cards
Hmm.
to my husband, and we had to take a huge loan out to cover them, and we're still going to be paying it for years. And
Hmm.
it hurts, and and I look at him, and he's not perfect,
Sure.
but he has loved me through it, and he has not been too harsh on me. There have been some moments where, he's brought me back to reality. Like, no, like I know I'm lying. He knows I'm lying, and he'll only let me go so far with it, which is a good thing. Sometimes I wish he was a little bit more, uh, more stern, because he gives in a lot. He gives in a lot to me, and that's he just loves me, and he doesn't know how to handle it, or he doesn't want to, and he just turns his cheek to it when I'll go and I'll lie about where I'm at, and come home, and the whole night I'm asking, are you mad at me? Are you mad
Yes,
at me?
I did
Are
that.
you okay? Yes. I mean, it's just that,
It's our guilt.
inside.
It's our
Yes, it's the
guilt.
guilt.
Yeah, I
Yes.
would do that too. I'd be sitting on the couch like, and he would just be, just quietly doing whatever. And I'm like, why are you being so quiet? Like, why are you mad? And he's
Yes.
just like, I'm fine. I'm watching this show. And it's just like it's our guilt, especially because he didn't know. He didn't know in my situation, he didn't know that like I just blew all of our money and we have, bills coming up and I don't know how I'm going to pay them. I don't know how I'm going to get gas in this truck, and it's just like it's eating me. I'm sitting there and it's eating me inside. And I can't tell him, but yeah, I'm like, are you mad? Like it's like subconsciously I think he knows, but he
Yes.
doesn't know. It's just part of the whole
Yeah.
scenario of that. But yeah, so I know exactly where that is. And the thing is, too, your husband would be considered an enabler, right? Because he knows. And my enabler was my mother because she was the
Yeah.
one who bailed me out every time. And, or 9 times out of 10 when she could, she was the one that bailed me out. I don't think she realized how bad it was, but she knew that I had a problem. And so she became my enabler. And that was one of the things whenever I came clean to her, she's like, I'm not going to be your enabler anymore. And my sister isn't either. And because she'd help me out too. And they both were like, we're not going to enable you anymore. If you get yourself in a financial situation, you're going to have to figure it out. And they decided to just drop that firm hammer down. And by the time we talked about this, I was okay with hearing that.
Yeah.
If they had tried to tell me that even a week prior, I probably would have been like, F you and I don't need you anyway, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But because I was at my rock bottom and I was ready to make the change, I was willing to hear what anybody wanted to say to me to help me do that.
Yeah. And that's really you're right. And nobody has ever, or I've never really thought of him as enabling me, but
Mm-hmm.
he is, because he loves me so much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it makes me feel sad, like
Yeah.
really sad, because I put him in that position, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of people who have that love from someone. And I'm really lucky that I do. Um, and, I have just really good people around me. And I want this, I've wanted this for a long time. Um, but I think sometimes when you just get so consumed, you just don't know, like, how, it's just, you have to hit that certain point where you are just like, it's all or nothing. I can't just go and take $40 and, you only use that and do this every once in a while. And it's just with my personality, absolutely, I have to either, it's like a do or die at this point for me. Not literally, because
Right.
I've never been to but I know a lot of people have.
Yeah, I
And
personally was to that point.
yeah, I mean, that's, I hope that doesn't affect anybody by me saying that, but it is like, to me,
No,
it's just,
no. There are a lot of people who are problem gamblers who are just realizing um, that this is becoming a problem. And I want to reach those people as much as I want to reach the ones who are at their rock bottom.
right.
Because if we can help women who are just kind of at that problem stage where it's just kind of, they're having to kind of shift their bills around.
Hmm.
They're not really having to borrow money and they're still, their credit's still good. And kind of those kind of people who are just starting to kind of feel the problem from gambling. If we can kind of just catch them in that moment and be like, look, you know, when you kind of cross that line, it's all downhill. I
Yeah.
haven't met anybody I've probably talked to hundreds of women at this point. I haven't talked to anybody who was able to pull themselves back um, from when it goes over that hump to where they're using bill money or money that they really shouldn't be using, to going back to not to being able to go and just spend X, $40 and walk out.
Right.
I've
Right.
yet to come across that woman. And I'm not saying there isn't, that select few, because there always is, but once it kind of crosses that line into problem gambling, it's usually a slippery slope, and it can go really fast. And I was interviewing Rick from Alchemist, and he said that women get addicted a lot faster to the slot machines, and they call it crack gambling, because it gets so obsessive so quickly. And I can see that. I can definitely see that, because that was, I mean, I think it took me, I was in it 15 years, and the last 5 to 7 being compulsively and damaging. Um, but yeah, it's almost, when you're trying to leave that addiction, it almost feels like, you're weaning yourself off of hardcore
Yes.
drugs.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. While you were just saying that, that's what I was thinking. Like, you literally feel when you go there that you're getting your high,
Yep. It's that dopamine
and
high.
yeah. And it's a really, I never knew that I could become addicted to gambling. I used to watch that show Intervention, and the whole thing was, I mean, I would watch it, and I would just picture my kids like, oh my gosh, I hope that never happens to my kids. I hope they never fall into any type of addiction. I used to think to myself, like, at least I don't have an addictive personality. I really thought that I did not have
Yeah, I
that. I
did
don't
too.
even know if that's really a thing though, because maybe it is, but I think anybody can, you know, but with the drugs and stuff, at least it's out there and there's awareness. With the gambling, to me, it snuck into me. Like, if I would have
Mm-hmm.
known that this could have happened to me, I would have stopped. Just I would never even have walked into one of those places.
Yeah.
Because I would never shoot up. I would never put a
Right.
needle in my arm. Like, the thought of it, because you do that. Who knows what's going to happen after that? One in two of becoming addicted to something like that. A chance,
Yeah.
50% addiction rate on heroin. And it's like, not that I'd ever, just the thought of needles, no, but, um, just, if I would have known that this could have happened to me, there's no way I would have, even
Yeah.
stepped foot in or put a quarter in a machine or anything like that. But I didn't know.
And
It
that's why it's
just,
so important to talk about it. And that's why I'm doing this podcast, and that's why I'm doing the work that I'm doing for this, because I was the same way. I didn't grow up around addiction. Aside from nicotine, my mom was a smoker. Um, I didn't grow up around any kind of addiction. But, I saw, starting in early grade school, they start with the education on drugs and alcohol, and, but even nowadays, gambling is not addressed in early education. It's not addressed really anywhere. Um, and like, with GA and a lot of these programs, they don't advertise because, and honestly, I know there's literature on it. I think I have the literature on why they don't advertise, but I still don't get it. Um, because, if I think if I had saw a story of a woman just like my own, I would have been like, okay, all right, I don't want that to be me,
right.
but I ended up going down that road. And so it's like, um, yeah, I wish that I had heard a story, but I never heard a story in the 15 years that I gambled. I never heard a story. And it's like you said, I would see the people sitting there and I would be like, oh my gosh, why are they always here? It's like,
Right.
wait, I'm always here. But I would walk past a woman who was like chain smoking and like you can tell hasn't gotten up off that seat in hours. And I'm like, man, that's just sad. And
Yeah.
then aside from the chain smoking, I don't smoke, but I was that person that somebody walked by and was like, man, she's been sitting there for hours.
Yeah.
And, or they would walk by my machine and I would have X amount of dollars on it. And then they would walk by it later and be like, oh my God, she played all that back. And,
Exactly.
that was just embarrassing and awful. But at the same time, I couldn't make myself get up, and so it's like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah. And you know what? It really is, you're right. And um, so where I go, I don't really go as much. Well, I go to the casino too, but like I said, it's everywhere. So there's these
mm,
little cafes, they make them look really cute and they bring you coffee and pretty much it's kind of like the same people that come in there. And in the last few months, I have, I've been wanting to quit. I really have been. I mean, even though I'm going and I haven't done it. Um, I would see women and I'd be playing and, you start getting like, I'm thinking as I'm sitting there hitting that button. And I just want to ask one, like, hey, do you want to take a break and get a cup of coffee? But they might not even be at that point where they're just in their mode. And of course I would never do that. But almost like I've wanted to do that, just to like talk to someone who is doing the same thing I'm doing and see where we can connect, maybe take a walk, get out of
mm-hmm.
this, do something. But, that's stepping over the bounds, like, can you imagine some stranger when you're really into your addiction coming up to you? Maybe some would welcome it, maybe not. I've never done it, but it had crossed my mind to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
to kind of like just talk to somebody and say like, hey, is this a problem for you? Because it's starting to be a problem for me. And I'm just wondering, is it just me or is it because we isolate ourselves so much, and that was the biggest game changer for me, was talking to somebody whose story was almost exactly like mine.
mhm.
And I'm like, oh my God, I posted this in the group, and I've said, 6 months ago I was alone, I was scared, I didn't know I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to start recovery. I knew that it was ruining my life. I knew that it was
Mm.
doing all this to me. I didn't feel like I had a friend in the world. And then, so I tried to do it on my own, and then I failed miserably at that. And I thought, I'm never gonna be able to do this. I'm never gonna be able to beat this. And I think the loneliness and all that played into why I slipped too. But it was that moment that I switched over and I came across somebody that knew exactly what I was thinking, that knew exactly what I was feeling, that had done the exact same things. And that was the first time in a very, very long time that I didn't feel alone. Even though I was surrounded by my family and friends, they didn't understand.
Right. You're still
And
alone
yeah,
because you're the only one battling this.
exactly. And you're the only one that they won't understand the way we justify things, to feed this addiction. To them, it's batshit crazy. Like, how did you get from point A to point B? Because that makes no sense. But in our
Right.
minds, in the moment, it makes absolute sense. Like, it
Yes.
just
Yeah, I
so.
just like for me as a new person, just struggling still, big time
Mhm.
struggling. The urges are there. To me, I want to know like how long this is going to last. How long is this going to last for me? I mean, I know everybody's different, but I mean, when will this pass? Because it's hard. It's
Yeah.
scary. When will the fear pass?
It is interesting that you asked that, because when we're scared to make that step into recovery, it's like if we had a roadmap or we had some kind of idea, like we could look ahead and have some kind of idea of how this was going to impact us, then, maybe it would be easier. But to an extent, by talking to other women who are in recovery, it kind of gives you a little bit of that roadmap. But like you said, everybody's going to be different. Everybody experiences things different. But when you know that you have people behind you that will walk you through it, and I know we talked about this the other day when we had our conversation, but up to this point, you've survived 100% of what life's given you, right?
Right.
So in recovery, I promise you, you'll survive 100% of what comes with that. It's still, it's still scary, but I think for me, it's like putting one foot in front of the other. You just kind of tiptoe in it a little bit, just like you've been doing. You've been, reading stories and just kind of, getting some encouragement that way. Some days are going to be tougher than others. Some days you'll have a hard time picking yourself up out of that spot. But as long as you have it in the back of your mind that there's so, there's time right now that
Right.
you can put into your husband or your kids, grandbabies, even in ourselves, uh, just making ourselves
Yeah.
feel better. So,
Yeah, I've definitely, I'm sure many can relate, where you do give up on just everything. I don't get my hair done. Before I would never have a gray hair. I'd have my hair done, I'd get my nails done, I'd, self care, work out, eat right. And this has taken such control over me that everything is about it. So like I'm not gonna go spend $100 to get my hair done. I'm gonna spend $8 and get the box and use the other 92 and go give it away to a slot
mhm.
machine. Growing up, I think a lot of people in our position, we've gone through a lot in life. And for me, my mom, she was 15 years old when she got pregnant with my brother, 17 when she had me. So young, not ready to be a
Mhm.
mom. And she wasn't a very good mom. Now she is. We're very close, but she wasn't, and when I was a kid. And she feels so bad about it. She lives in it. She's always apologizing. And I always tell her the same thing, Mom, you're here now. You're here now. My grandkids know their great grandma. And how
Mhm.
many people can say that,
Yeah.
So you can't live thinking about what could have, should have, would have. Yeah,
Yep.
you've made mistakes, but today, and I don't think about that for myself. And I don't think like that for myself. I need to, because that's going to help me. I have to start loving myself again.
Exactly.
And
And I
just like I
think,
love them. Yeah.
yeah. And with recovery, that's what I tell a lot of people when we're in this addiction, we become very selfish, because we spend money we shouldn't be spending. We, don't spend the time we need to spend. And, you know, in recovery, and well, let me just say this, especially with women, we put everybody else's needs above our own. And, you know, even though I don't have kids, I have a husband and a household and I work full time, and there's just things that you just keep putting before your own needs.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of creates this need to escape because we're just overwhelmed because we're just so worried about making sure everybody else is okay that we don't make sure that we're okay. And, you know, with recovery, we still have to be selfish, but it's a different kind of selfish. It's a selfishness that we need to heal and find our truth again, but it's going to benefit those around us instead of hurt those around us. And so, you know, it's just kind of, I think people too struggle in recovery, or especially women who still have families around them and stuff like that, because it does take a lot of time, you know, to focus on ourselves, and we have to set boundaries, and we have to say no, and we have to do things that we're just not used to doing. And so it kind of, you know, kind of gets us hung up a little bit on that because we're not used to doing those things. And the people around us aren't used to us setting those boundaries. You
Right.
know, they've benefited by us not having those boundaries. And so, you know, that's just one thing that by taking the time, you know, in recovery and just focusing on some of those things, it does benefit them in the long run. And it benefits you. Like just something that's small that is kind of weighing on you, but it's just something small that maybe you could take to make that change. That might help.
I mean, there's many, like a lot of stuff that come to mind, but there nothing like seems small to me right now. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like I
it
just wish
does.
that, yeah, everything seems so heavy right
Mm-hmm.
now. Whether it's I've gained weight, you know, like if I could just take a walk every day, like if I could just like carve that
See?
time out and have the motivation to do it, like
Yeah.
that's something that would make me feel great, and it would be a small change for me that I um, it would maybe set the mood for the
Yeah.
rest of my day. But I think when I'm like right now, just I want to get there. And
Mm-hmm.
even it's just, I don't know if I'm just in a really, you know, it's just my emotions are so
Yeah.
high right now with trying to come down off of this binge, you know, trying to like, um, you know, I don't want to think about the money. I don't want to think
Yeah.
about the lies and the greed and the just, you know, all of that bad stuff that came with that binge.
And that's the hard part, and that's the scary part too, is that we do have to think about those things and we do have
Yeah,
to address those things, but we don't have to do it all at once. It
right.
doesn't have to be, you know, okay, right now I've got to address everything I've done. Because what I did is I told the people in my life whenever I started recovering, and I'm just like, because my mom was kind of coming at me a little bit, like, because she just thought, and she wasn't meaning to, but you know, she was kind of telling me, you know, kind of things that had affected other people, not the people that I was even thinking about that my
Hmm.
addiction affected, but people outside of that my addiction affected, like my brother-in-law. Like I didn't think about my brother-in-law. I just thought about my sister.
Yeah.
And so the things that I did to her, you know, pissed my brother-in-law off. And I never thought of it. Like as crazy as that sounds, that's how selfish I was. But my mom kind of started talking about those things and it completely overwhelmed me.
Yeah.
Like it almost overwhelmed me to the point that it almost sent me back. And but fortunately, my therapist, jokes on her, she gave me her cell phone number. So she talked me down from it. And you know, I was able to kind of process that and accept it. But those, you know, and I told my mom and my sister and the people closest to me, like, I get that you guys are mad. I get that I've done things that you want to talk about. And I get that you have the right to be upset with me and that maybe you do need to talk about these things for your own closure. But I can't handle it right now.
Yeah.
There will be a time where I'll be able to sit down and I'll be able to handle these things, but it's not today. And they completely respected that. They completely understood it. And just by me saying that to them, it actually kind of helped resolve some of the issues that they had because they understand that I'm trying not to be that person anymore.
Right.
And they don't want to hang it over my head either. So,
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I mean, I don't there's my husband, my daughters, and obviously their spouses know that I have a problem.
mhm,
I don't let anybody else that, I mean, I don't, nobody else, I've never asked anybody for money, thank God, or anybody extended,
mhm,
I have my, like I said, my parents were really young parents, definitely, uh, probably the cause of a lot of my issues,
mhm,
because they just weren't ready. So the for me, right now, I've made all three aware, my husband, my two daughters, just, hey, gonna try again. I don't want to talk about it too much because I'm tired of breaking promises. I'm tired of just putting that much pressure on myself. But I am really focusing just on one day at a time. So
yeah,
I realize it. I'm praying every day that God just gives me the strength to
yeah,
keep going one more day,
mhm,
because I want to be myself again. I think
yeah.
I'm just so lost right now.
Okay, I'm just going to tell you early recovery, you've got all these emotions, but we're dealing with all this emotional um, roller coaster from our brains wanting that dopamine high. They're wanting that quick hit, and that's the thing that we're fighting the most in the beginning is it's just like a tug of war in our brains,
Yeah.
like no, no, we don't want to do it.
Yes.
And then the monster is like, yes, yes, you do, you do. And so it's just like, but as you get one day at a time, it was probably about, I'm going to say it was probably about 60 days that the emotional toll was probably done and over with. And it could have been closer to 45. But on top of that, as women, we have, the fluctuations of our cycles, and the emotions with that. And I think a lot of people don't take that into account. And so it's just like this overwhelmingness of emotions, good, bad. But one thing that hit me too was irritation. I was
Yes.
irritated, angry. I was angry. I was angry at everything. I was angry. I blamed the casino. I blamed everybody else but myself for this addiction. But as I started to kind of go through those and work through those emotions and process those emotions, I just realized, like the casino is what it always was. It's there to take your money. And I can't be mad at it because I chose to go. So I started to own my story. I started to take responsibility for my actions. And by doing that, I've I've kind of found this sense of myself that I haven't experienced in a long, long time. Even if it, I know most people wouldn't say this, but even if it takes you a couple more tries, to get this down. And I'm just being realistic. Okay.
Yeah.
I think
I appreciate
sometimes
that. Mhm.
we don't have this realistic idea. We build up this idea of what recovery is supposed to be. It's supposed to be perfect. We don't relapse, we don't do these things. Um, and everything's just going to be fine. And that's just not the case. And when we feel like that, and let's say you don't want to tell any more promises, right? So you promise that recovery is going to be great, you're going to do all these things, and then you break that promise and you feel worse about yourself,
Yes.
and you feel like I'm never going to beat this, so why try? And then it just sends you right back into the cycle. But if we go into it, and I know a lot of people probably are not going to agree with this, but if we go into it with a realistic expectation that I might slip, but even if I do, I'm going to keep trying, because eventually you gain traction. You do. You gain traction, and eventually, you get caught up in the other things, and it does start to wane, your urges and things like that.
I
So,
agree with that. This is not my first 3 day. I've
mhm,
gone 6 months, and I talked to you about it the other day.
mhm,
It was easy because everything was closed down, but not really. Everything wasn't really closed down. I mean, I could have explored other options to feed my addiction. But in those 6 months that with the lockdown, it was actually 3 months lockdown, and then they opened, and I just stayed away. for 3 months, which was, great. And I remember, my daughter would come over, she'd be like, "Oh, how do you feel?" And every time I just said, "I feel so good. I feel so good." And then I thought, okay, well, it's been six months, around Thanksgiving time. I told my husband, like, let's just go for Thanksgiving, like after we, because that was just kind of like a thing on the holidays. We'd go to the casino. He didn't gamble. He would just stand behind me. He would just literally stand behind me the whole time. Um, and I said, I feel good. I'm sure I can do this, just every once in a while. Oh, no, that was the biggest mistake that I could have made, because,
Mhm.
it just sucked me right back in. And, but with all of and then, a few months later, I stopped for a couple weeks. I did well. So it's, it's getting there. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And it's a really, really hard thing to say that you need help and that
Yeah.
you're addicted to something. Nobody wants to feel that way, especially a mom, a grandma. Like at this point in my life, I should have it together. This should not be my story, but it is. It is
It
what it
is.
is. And I'm the only one that can change it. And like I told my husband the other day, because he looked at me, and this was kind of like a really big turning point for me this time, was, he just said, "You're not happy. You're just not happy. Or I don't think you're happy." And he's right, I'm not. And, but, I told him, "But you're not in control of my happiness. I am. I have to change me. I'm happy being married to you. I'm just not happy with myself. And I'm the only one that can make this change for myself. I can't do it for you. I can't do it for, I am doing it for my daughter, who is, I see her following the same path
Mhm.
as me. And it hurts me to see that. So I'm hoping, that I'm doing this for her as well, because we're each other's crutch,
Yeah.
So if I take it away from her and she has to kind of try to stand on her own, it's not going to be that easy to go down the street, because she doesn't have the funds. We would go and I'd slip her a couple bucks, and that would be our thing. And,
Mhm.
that hurts me to see her, uh, possibly doing the same
Going
thing.
down.
And,
Yeah.
like you said, like if we would have known, what we know now, she's at that point where she doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be that way for her.
And you can be that person to tell her. You can be that person to show her. And, with my mom, that was the thing me and my mom did. Like my mom was a recreational gambler. And, you know, I live in a state where there's a casino everywhere. And that's just kind of what we did. And but she was able to kind of control it. I think she kind of saw where it could be a problem for her. She's a single income, she's close to retirement. And, I think she saw where it could impact that. And so she kind of stepped back and I kind of accepted it, and so I just didn't take her with me. I was still going,
Mhm.
but I told her I wasn't going. I told her I
Yeah.
wasn't going, but I was totally going. And she just kind of stepped back. But when I came clean to her and told her, I mean, she went so far as to take the games off her phone because she didn't want to have one of those games go off or something and trigger me. I don't really know, but she just wanted to support me.
Yeah.
And by not doing anything herself, that was supporting me. And you talk about that with your daughter, and that's another thing that I'm really worried about is it becoming a generational problem, because alcohol and drugs a lot of times are generational. Um, and so with the way that the gaming industry is rising, and they're starting younger and younger with the games and things like that, it very well could turn into a generational curse, because a lot of times your story isn't different from a lot that I've heard where you've gone to the racetracks with your parents, and I've heard that a ton of times. um and so you kind of see that that's a fun time when you're young, and so
Yeah.
you
I used to
try it
take
even
my
older.
kids when they
Yeah.
were little, pick a horse. What horse do you guys want? And, you're just not, I thought it was just a cool thing to do with them because, the horses are cool. They're kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like a cheap, air quotes, cheap outing
Mm-hmm.
because, you can get in free and you see the horses and you put a couple dollars on a bet and, you can have a family night for, $50. But in reality, it's opening them up to putting money in and possibly winning some money and then thinking, everybody, kids at this point, at their age when I would take them, they knew that they could take money and go buy themselves something that they wanted. They kind of not, they don't really know the value of money, but you do know what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, and they see that as a good thing.
When I was, trying to find a way out, prior to this time, um, I was Googling like rehab for gamblers, rehab. Like I felt like I need to go, like I need to be like locked away somewhere and have this intensive therapy. You can't find anything. You literally can't find that. If well, I mean, maybe you can if you searched maybe harder than me, but I could not come across anything that was geared towards what I was going through,
Mhm.
especially like you said, it's so hard to find women around my age to relate to because, and who are going through the same thing. I have gone into meetings, they are helpful, not knocking meetings. It helps because you really need to hear these stories.
Mhm.
But I only have, a couple hours a day where I can like log on, and those when I can do that, it's the same people that have been recovered for 20, 30 years, and
Yeah.
you don't know how I'm feeling. It's easy to look at people like me and say, just come on, stop, just stop. You don't have to do it. That's like anybody, if you're struggling with depression, oh, just stop feeling like that.
Mhm.
No, that's not the way it works. It's um I need people that I can relate to and where I don't feel like I'm alone,
Yeah.
and I can really, it's, I wouldn't even post in some of the groups because I'd be afraid of what was going to come at me.
Go to
you
meetings.
know
Start 12-step work. And it's like those things, right? You know that that's
I
what you need to
know.
do. And it's like I
Yes.
posted the other day and I started the conversation with this. It's like I just wanted somebody to say, I understand. It's
Yes.
okay that you are not ready. I'm just glad that you're thinking about it. And that's honestly how I feel. And that's what I want anybody listening to this who is still struggling, but they're scared. They want to stop, they want to make the change, but they're scared. I understand. I was there, 6 months ago. I completely understand that feeling. Just keep reading, keep reading stories and just keep, you know, looking for some help and
It's really hard. It's really hard to find. And the
overwhelming.
only place that I could think of was to go on Facebook because,
Mm-hmm.
I don't do any of the other social media. I think I
Right.
have like an Instagram or something, but I'm not active. The only thing I could think of was to go on Facebook and search,
Groups.
gambling. And I'm in quite a few of them, but I don't feel like I belong in them.
Really.
Like
Mm-hmm.
um, there's another a woman's group, and that there's no depth to it.
Yeah.
Like there's no depth, and I'm looking for like just, uh, I, I don't know. I don't need to be babied. You don't have to like coddle me. Oh, it's going to be okay. Just keep relapsing. And, it's not like that. I'm not looking for that. I just am looking for encouragement, support, advice, good, solid advice, not the things that I know I should be doing. I know I should be doing these things. And there's a reason that I'm here. It's because I need help to get to that point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. No,
lost
I
my
get
train
what
of
you're
thought.
saying. Yeah. And I think because there are some people in the recovery community that are like very soft about it.
Yeah.
Let them come to us. And sometimes some people, and I am this way, I need a little bit of a fire, a little bit of a spark, something to kind of engage me and inspire me and encourage me. but not like just go to meetings and do the program. It worked for me 30 years ago. It'll work for you now, because
Right.
it's not the same time frame. We're women, we need different types of things to help us heal. And some of us don't respond. Like, I'm not for everybody. I'm not going to be for everybody, because some people are going to be like, okay, she's a little too sunshine. She's a little too deep. She's a little too, I don't know. I'm sure there's a list,
Well,
but you
when you put
know,
yourself out there, that's, there's always going to be the
yeah,
judgment. But, if you can help, you're helping me personally. So I can only speak for myself. But this, our talk the other day,
mhm.
the group, the posts, the podcasts, I ordered my book. So that's coming
Good.
today.
Yeah.
Uh, it has helped me more than anything that I can think of, in, to try to, it has motivated me,
Hmm.
to keep going.
Yeah.
So,
Even on the hard
I,
days, even on the hard
yes,
days, sometimes just reading something can just make all the difference in whether or not you're going to gamble that day. You could
right,
have a really hard day at work or something, and you're like, you know what, I got to stop. I got to stop and play. I can't deal.
yeah,
But then let's say you jump on Facebook before you leave work and you come across, somebody's share or somebody's story, and you're like, okay, I want to be that person. I don't want to
yeah.
be, and sometimes it can really just in that moment. And it did for me. Like, if I read somebody's story and it just like, you know what, I would rather be sharing something like that. And that did help. That did help me.
Yeah, and when you asked me to be on here, I was really, I got really pretty excited about it because I had been listening to your Saturday Step One with Tara,
Hmm.
and the whole, I'm only halfway through it right now because I have to
It's a
make
long
sure
one.
it's the right time. Well,
It's a
and I
long
just want to
one.
make sure I absorb it all.
Yeah.
But the whole time I'm nodding my head,
Mhm.
like literally I felt like a
You
bobblehead
were part of the
because I
conversation, like you're
yeah, and I was
sitting
like,
there with
yeah,
us.
yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah. And the codependency aspect of it, like
Mhm.
I didn't even know that was a thing, like you said. And
I didn't either.
I have dad issues,
Mhm. Me
and
too.
yeah, well, right. So it's just a really, where she said, or you said, I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it, but you can't, uh, you're powerless over the way that people treat you.
Hmm.
You cannot control what they say or how they act towards you or how much they love you. You can't make people love you.
Mm-mm.
I mean, just, this is just the way that what I was taking from it. Like, and my relationship with him is just like, yeah, I can only control my reaction to it. I can't control what and they really help. It really
Mhm.
has helped me. So hopefully this helps, our conversation helps someone
Well,
out
I hope
there.
so too. I hope so too. And that's why, you don't find conversations when somebody's just right at the cusp of changing and making that first step. And that's why I kind of wanted to record this conversation. Is just a conversation about making that change and how scary it is, and that it's okay if today's not the day, but you will get to that day that you're just like, and it could be that you keep saying tomorrow's going to be the day, and before you know it, you've got 30 days of no gambling.
Yeah.
30 days, I'm really going to have this, thing. And these days do add up. Like, you're on day 3, you'll get through today. Um, and then and it's before you know it. And I try not to get too far ahead of myself, but before you know it, you've got 30 days behind you. And it
Yeah.
just gives you a sense of strength and purpose.
That's what uh, I'm, I don't want to get ahead of myself because
Mm-hmm.
I do that to myself,
Yeah.
and then I have that, I let myself down. But the
Yeah.
way that I'm approaching it this time is, I do have the counter on my phone,
Yeah.
but I really don't want to focus too much on like the number
Mm-hmm.
because if I do that, it puts too much pressure on me,
Yeah.
so every day I'm waking up, I'm just praying for the strength just this day. And before I'd be like, okay, I just can't wait to get to, 60 days, or I just can't wait to be where this person is or that person is.
Right.
And I still can't, but I also like am realizing that I have to um, just every day, make it a new day,
Yeah,
make it a new day.
exactly. And that works for me. For some reason I do count the days for me, but that's not for everybody. And really it's just about just abstaining from gambling that day. It
Right.
doesn't, just abstaining from gambling that day. And then before you know it, you can look back and see that
Yes.
there's a group of days that together consecutively that you didn't gamble. In another trap that we fall into when I talk about this perfect recovery is comparing our journeys to others. And a lot of us, I fell into that trap too. Or we see somebody that's a year in recovery and we're just like, we want it so bad. And for some reason that does add pressure to us. And it does sometimes when it kind of makes us feel like, well, I don't know about you, but for me, when I first was like, oh man, I want to be, a year clean, and I would just like be really aggressive about it. And then it was just like so hard. And then I got overwhelmed. And then I was like, I can't do this. And so when I started out the second time, I was just like, I'm just not going to gamble today. I'm
Yeah.
gonna read stories. I'm gonna work through my workbook. I'm gonna build some encouraging posts to put out. And then I just started I found my energy going to other things. And
Yeah.
before I knew it, I found my energy going to this podcast.
Yeah.
And
And it's really inspirational to hear you say that because like I said before, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I I followed you and the other groups, and I really felt relatable to you, and I without before I even saw your picture or knew who you were anonymous. It was
mhm,
just your words. uh they hit me, and but then you kind of fell off of that group, and I was like, I actually searched you, and I don't know how I came across you, but then I'm like, you know what, maybe it's a sign. And I know that sounds crazy, but maybe it is. It's just my message, my messenger,
mhm.
because I believe in that. I believe that there's a messenger that's going to open that door for you, and it's up to you to go through it and take advantage of the opportunities. So that's
Oh
where I'm
yeah.
at right now. That's, my thought process on this. But
Well, our higher power, I truly believe, puts people in our path to help us. It's almost like a sign that that this is the direction you need to go. Because and I'm not saying anything about me or what I've put out there. I don't want anybody to think that I've got this ego about it. But with in my case, I met Tara through my social media posts, and I wouldn't have met her if I hadn't put those posts out there. And she is a huge part of my recovery. She's like just really important to me. And then I've met my therapist who I wasn't even supposed to see. And it's just like by meeting all these people, and then I got involved in the groups and the Broke Girl Society came about. It's like when you feel that door opening, I get what you're saying. It's like, okay, this is where the universe, my higher power, is telling me to go. And I'm going to go.
yes.
And it's like somehow by doing that, it's like the strength comes from nowhere. Like you didn't know you had this strength because it was almost dormant. And then
Right.
the door opens and all of a sudden the strength just comes up. And you're
Yeah.
like, I can do this. And it's because of the people that come in your life that give you that strength
Yes.
and help you find your courage, to do those things. And I just think, and in my group, I have a post on there, that we're warriors, because really to me, the amount of courage it takes to not only humble ourselves with recovery and be vulnerable, but the amount of courage it takes just to be ourselves and own our stories and fight this addiction on top of
Yeah.
everything else we have to deal with. That to me is a fucking warrior. I don't.
Yes.
that to me is just pure strength and pure determination. And,
Yeah, it's not easy to admit to to other people that you're
yeah,
struggling with this.
no,
It's embarrassing.
it
It's an
is
embarrassing thing for a lot of, I mean, for me,
for me
it's
too.
embarrassing, and but I think when you come to this point, even if you're still struggling the way that I am, just having that acknowledgement, and I mean, it might not happen today for me. I mean, I pray that it happens this time.
Yeah,
I
I
pray.
understand. Hmm.
Um, but even if I fail, I know eventually it's gonna happen because I
Yeah,
want it that bad. I want
yeah,
it that bad, but I'm
yeah,
human too. So
exactly.
everybody, I'm emotion driven. I'm hormonal,
Aren't we all?
premenopausal.
Aren't we all?
So, with that, so many things in my life and my body are changing. It's
Hmm.
just ups
It's a
and
lot.
downs, and yeah, it's a ton. So, but I'm praying that this is the turning point.
Yeah. Well, me too. So I'll go ahead and kind of work this down, but
Yeah,
um, I'm here. I'm here for you.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
and even if you have a tough day, reach out to me, and we'll talk.
Yeah.
I'll be your friend. I'll be your sister in recovery,
Well, thank
and
you.
we'll get through this together. So I really appreciate you sharing your story and just openly talking about how hard this is. Um, and hopefully somebody else listening will just be able to relate and be like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
and maybe start thinking about it, or start researching it, or start doing something, even if they're not ready to take the step today. At least we can maybe get the wheels turning on that
Yes.
and get them thinking
Yes.
about it, just because
I
that's
hope
that's how
so.
it happened for me. And hopefully that's how it happens and well, you already know the wheels are turning for you. um, and just know that there's a community out there for these women. You can find us at the Broke Girl Society website and group and all those. There's so many links out there. You can come to the group and chat with us, and hopefully find some encouragement. So again, thanks, April.
You're welcome.